Welcome! I'm Molly Suberthorpe. Here on my channel, I offer bite-sized tutorials in hand lettering, and today I'm going to show you how I make quirky lettering animations in Procreate. This is a super easy technique with lots of applications and really fun results. I'm going to start by creating a new artboard by tapping the plus sign in the upper right, and then tapping this icon with a plus sign to create a new custom-sized canvas. Because this is an animation, I don't plan to print it. I'm only going to use it digitally online, and so therefore it doesn't have to be a huge file, but I don't want it to be too small either because zooming in and having a crisp looking file is pretty nice. So making sure that dimensions is on pixels, let's make the width, I don't know, let's keep it this default, 2400 by 2400. DPI at 300 is fine. In fact, it's more than we'll need for online use, and maximum layers of 89 is more than we're going to need. Create any type of lettering layout. I usually start with really quick sketches. I like to use either the pencil tool in Procreate or really any brush that I can work with quickly to make sure that I have the layout, the number of lines, the number of words per line, and a nice margin. And then I'll go in and spend time refining. Here in my brushes palette, let's come over to the sketching brush set, which comes free with Procreate. So this is not a custom brush. You should have these as well. And I'll come to the 6B pencil. Tapping it once, let me just make sure that streamline is turned completely off, and that way I have full control over the pen and there's no stroke correction happening. For sketching, this is what I personally prefer. So we're going to keep this a very fun style today. There won't really be flourishes, there won't really be adherence to baselines or italic slant. We're just going to have fun and throw some letters down on the page and just see how it looks. Because the animation itself, you'll see, is going to add a lot of whimsy to it too. So here on New Blank Layer, I'm just going to start sketching out my words. Now I've chosen a simple eco-friendly message that even if the design itself is whimsical, hopefully it will also be sort of inspiring or thought-provoking to the people who I'm going to show it to. So it is refuse. I'm going to put each word on its own layer, by the way, so that when I rearrange them, it'll be much easier to work layer by layer instead of selecting different words. So new layer, refuse. Say reduce. You see how I'm not even trying to make these letters look good? I'm just putting them out here to create a layout. Refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot, as in compost. Okay, so now these layers from top to bottom are reversed here in my layers palette. Because I know that for a fact, I can work from top to bottom and they're layered 1 through 5, but you may want to tap and rearrange them to be in the right order, top to bottom. That's your preference. So holding the first layer here and tapping the selection icon, I'm just going to go through my layers and sort of move them around, turning magnetics off so I have full control. Turn them, tweak them, re-angle them so that they're very, very approximately in a similar slant, but also in a layout that seems kind of whimsical and loose, sort of running diagonally down the page. Let's move this recycle over a bit more. That's fine, I actually kind of like that. So now I'm going to either, you can group these if you want to keep the layers separated, but I'm going to flatten them together as one layer because this is just my rough draft layer and I'm about to refine and refine and refine. The quickest way to merge a bunch of layers together in Procreate is to squeeze them together. Sometimes this takes a couple tries, but once you get the hang of the movement, it's a big time saver. So now I have this all on one line and I can come up to my selection tool and I can again sort of adjust the entire layout as one. All right, I'm pretty happy with this very basic draft. Actually, I'll reduce the opacity first and I'll create a new layer on top of it. Now I'm going to select some pen that's much more like a marker. I'm going to experiment with what pen I want to use for my final design. I have this inky lettering brushes set that I created, and I do sell it. It's in the description box below, but you by no means have to use this. There are actually some cool drawing and inking brushes that you can absolutely use that come with Procreate as part of the default brush set. I'm coming though to my inky lettering brushes, and let's see, maybe I'm gonna choose my watery ink brush. I'm still staying on black because I haven't gotten to color choice quite yet. This might be too tapered a choice. Let's try this monoline watercolor brush. Let me see how I like this by turning off my other layer. Yeah, this is actually going to be kind of fun because I know how these animations are about to work. I can tell you that this will actually be a good brush to use in an animation. I'm just going to come in here and do a bit of refining on the spacing of the letters. And I'll turn on my draft again, and I'll keep going. I don't need, in this particular example, a new layer per line because I've already set up my layout and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to keep it. So staying on that other layer, I'm just going to keep going, refining with my new pen the design. And as usually happens, you're probably going to find that as you go and you make the letters even prettier, you'll stray from your initial design. And so you may have to do some tweaking and moving as you go. But I generally don't tweak the entire layout, but I might I might tweak how this R is placed. Something like that. And now this entire thing is coming up into where the reuse is, so I'm going to just move my draft itself down. Yeah, that'll be fine. We'll recenter and resize possibly everything later. Back to my art layer, back to my brush. Okay, I'm going to slightly change the orientation of this word recycle. Yep, and now tapping the selection tool, I can move this whole layer up a bit so that my last word will fit perfectly. I'm now turning off my draft layer. I could probably delete it because most likely I'm not going to use it again, but I'm just turning it off for now. I think I want a bit more margin around this, so again, I'll tap the selection tool and I'll turn on uniform and magnetics. And let's see, reduce the size and try to center this a little bit. Right. As a fun design, this is a fun layout. It is uneven intentionally, no real baseline, no cohesive slant, and I like that. So now the fun part comes, the actual animation part. Let's come up to the gear icon and turn on Animation Assist. Down here at the bottom, you get a new toolbar. The layer that we're on right now, the layer that we have turned on, appears here as a small thumbnail. Watch what happens when I turn on that draft layer we had. It appears as a thumbnail right before the other. So the order of your layers from bottom to top are going to appear in this panel from left to right, with the exception of the background color, which is considered to be a consistent layer throughout. So watch what happens when I change the background color. It changes for all of these layers. That's because this layer and this layer are transparent. They have no background of their own. So in other words, the background layer is turned on for all of these layers. So next we're making a brand new layer. And this is a blank layer that we're going to write over again. And what we're going to do is retrace our design multiple times, let's say 4 or 5 times. And the point is that every time we hand letter the same design, there will be very, very slight imperfections. No matter how much we try to copy it exactly as we previously made it, the slight differences are going to be just enough that when we animate them and make them as frames going through a loop, they're actually going to sort of jiggle and be a cute little animated design. Automatically, when you create a blank layer over your previous layer, the other layer turns into what's called an onion skin. And that just means that it gets lightened a lot so that you can trace it, because that's a very common method in animation. But I think that this is too dark. I want it even lighter for my tracing. So I'm coming to settings, and onion skin opacity is at 60%. I'm gonna reduce it quite a bit, let's say 30%. And the rest of the settings we'll deal with when we're ready to actually animate. So I'm coming back to my brush, staying on my new blank layer, and I'm just gonna come over and redo this entire design, tracing it relatively closely, but not really stressing if there are some differences. Do you see how the onion skin and my drawing are slightly off here? That's what I mean when I say it's okay if it isn't perfect. The animation is actually going to create a little jiggle effect when it switches from one layer to the other layer there. So that's actually kind of what we want. Okay, I'm done with my second layer, and instead of turning it off, I want you to see, because we have animation assist on, if I'm on this layer and then I tap the one below it, that one turns on. So you can see that already we've made this cute little animation. I can even push play over here. Well, we have the settings set to a really lot of frames per second. But already, just between two layers that are slightly different, we get a really, really cute little effect going on. Okay, I'm glad I zoomed in here because you can immediately see that there's something going on. This little dot appears. So I'm gonna figure out where that is. Okay, I think it's on this layer, because you see if this layer is turned on, it's not there. If this layer is turned on, it is. So all I'm gonna do is erase that. Yep, there we go, perfect. So rather than turn off my layer, I'm gonna just add another, because now my onion skin appears. And you'll see that right now, both onion skins, the previous two layers, appear. If you are bothered by that, all you have to do is temporarily turn off the visibility of one of the layers. So again, I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna do this at least 2 more times. Okay, so I now have 4 versions of the same design. I'm now officially going to delete my draft layer so that it's not there to cause any confusion. I'm definitely not going to need it again. If for any reason you ever want to switch the order of frames, all you have to do is switch the order of your layers. In this case, I genuinely don't think it's going to matter because this is just cycling through 4 very similar designs. So let's just take a look at how it is so far. I'm going to hit play. I mean, that's pretty cute, no? So under settings, let's play a little bit with the frames per second. The more you increase it, the more it has sort of a frenetic jiggle, and we don't want it too slow like this. That's boring. This is kind of nice. This will be based a little bit on how many layers you do and how intricate your design is. But in this case, let's stick with 6 frames per second. So I can choose loop, which means that it goes from the beginning to the end and then starts again at the beginning and goes again back to the end. Or I can choose ping pong, which means it goes from the beginning and back again and beginning and back again. You have to have the animation turned off in order to make that switch, and then hit play again and you'll see that it goes forward and back. Again, in this particular case, that's barely noticeable, but that is important if you're making an animation that actually shows movement like literally a ball moving across the screen. You don't want to have one version of your ball here, 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 so the animation looks like it's moving upward, and then start again from the bottom. If you want the ball to look like it's going back to the starting point, you would choose ping pong so that the frames would then reverse their order when they hit the end. Okay, so I like this, but I actually want to change the colors to something a little bit different. If you're sure about your colors, you could have chosen them at the beginning, but it's so easy to change colors at this point that I'm going to do it that way. So let's start with putting a background color that's a bit more fun. And honestly, something that's maybe a little bit appropriate to the message. I want a nice fun green, not something too dark. I hope that in this video it shows up as a fun green. Yeah, this has a bit of yellow, it's kind of a cute green, but now the black is too low contrast. So let me turn off these other layers so that we can just look at this layer for a moment. The non-destructive way of changing the color of a layer is to use a clipping mask and put a solid color layer inside your layer. I'm going to show you how to do that. But the destructive way that many people do is that they choose a color. When I say destructive, I don't mean this in a bad way. It just means that you can't actually at all reverse what you did unless you hit undo right away. So they would choose the color that they want, tap the layer and hit select, tap the layer again and say fill. That's fine. You've just changed the color in just a matter of a couple clicks. That's not what I want to do here. I want to make a new layer and tap it and fill it. So now I have a blank layer filled with that color. Tap it again and click clipping mask. This is the same number of steps, but what it means is that I can now turn this on and off and I have my original color. This may not be important to you for a design like this, but I'm telling you for illustrations, for lots of other kinds of intricate designs, this non-destructive method is one that I really prefer. And now all we have to do is apply this to the other layers in the file. And there are only 4, so I only have to duplicate this 3 times. I'll swipe left and duplicate, and I'll just start by duplicating it 3 times. And I'll drag each one over the next layer below it that has to get recolored. And then I'll just go up and tap them and clip them. Right? So when I turn on the art layers themselves, you'll see that down here, the clipping masks don't appear as their own layers. They are considered to be a type of group with the original art layer. So you still have the 4 layers down here, and when I hit play, I get this cute little dancing white illustration on a darker background. I kind of like that because actually the brush that I chose had a bit of opacity. So the opacity still shows with the clipping mask, and it shows up even more in white than it did in black. So I kind of like that, but if you want to change the colors from white again, all you do is you choose a new color here. Let's say this bright yellow, and then we'll just tap, fill, tap, fill, tap, fill, tap, fill. You see, I actually liked the white better. I thought it was cuter and simpler, so I'll just hit undo 4 times. And we're back to the white. All right, so let's talk about exporting this for different types of use. So an animated GIF might be what you would initially think that this should be, but if you're wanting to post this on Instagram, which is a pretty common use, you're actually going to need to have an MP4, a video file, not a GIF file. There are some apps that I'm going to put in the description below that will convert any GIF to a video. So if you've already, for example, ever created GIFs, you can turn them into MP4s that upload to Instagram. But let's just export this as a video straight away. All right, so here under the wrench tool, under share, I have the choice of 4 different types of animation file. An animated MP4, like I said, is the video file that we're gonna use for Instagram, and it's also possible to upload that to any platform, like whether it's YouTube or just make it part of any other video that you have. Now an animated GIF and ping can have transparent backgrounds. So the main reason that I would ever want to choose animated GIF or ping is because they would have transparent backgrounds. But I'm gonna now export this as an animated MP3. Let's keep frames per second as 6 and hit export. And there you have it, a cute little animation made from your hand lettering, which all told could take you 5–10 minutes, depending on how many layers you make and how intricate your design is. Pretty fun. Now, as always, I love seeing the designs that you create from my tutorials and books, so if you post this to social media, please tag me so that I can take a peek. And also just please check out the description box below for links to things like this touchscreen glove, which I always get questions about, as well as the apps I mentioned and the downloadable brushes and grids that I've created for people for free that you can download and use as you wish. If there's a specific tutorial that you're looking for in Procreate or Photoshop lettering, or honestly any type of lettering, leave that in the comments so that I can collect your ideas and hopefully give you content that you most want to see. Till next time.